Welcome to Magnificat TV News, dedicated to offering the news of the Church. Today is Thursday, November 18, 2021, and these are our headlines. Cardinal Kasper has once again sharply criticized the German Synod, which he said is a farce, and warned of the risk undervaluating the role of a bishop. Muslims' attacks against Christians in Africa continue. This time, the victims lived in Burkina Faso. The Russian Orthodox Patriarchate spokesman has mocked President Biden's application of the concept of good Catholic, which according to him was given to him by the Pope. Spain's socialist and communist government has passed a law that will punish with up to 1 year in jail anyone who stops to pray in front of an abortion clinic. Cardinal Kasper harshly criticizes the German Synod, which he accuses of having become a farce, while accusing the bishops of neglecting their functions.
Today's bishops are not new apostles, said the German cardinal in a statement on the synod being held in his country, which regrets that they are neglecting their functions as successors of the apostles. In purely formal terms, adds the cardinal, the synod has not annulled the episcopate, but it has essentially gutted it. According to the synodal text, the bishop is not very different from a chairman of a supervisory board who is elected for a fixed term and can be removed at any time. A synod must not be confused with a parliament where decisions are approved by a majority, he said. Instead, it must seek consensus, which is understood as a sign of the Holy Spirit. Therefore, a synod should not reject and overthrow a minority without a serious exchange of arguments, as happened at the last meeting of the synodal path. In doing so, the synodal path has become a farce of a synod.
Nigeria, Mali, Mozambique, and now Burkina Faso are the scenes of continuous bloody attacks by Muslims against Christians.
Citizens of Burkina Faso, witnesses and victims of the events that have recently beset the country, have declared that armed Muslim groups visit various villages of the population with the aim of raping, robbing, looting, and forcing their owners to pay taxes. The method used by the terrorists to carry out this type of actions is based on arriving violently to the villages and asking the herdsmen for alleged taxes per head of cattle. If they do not have enough money, the extremists seize their animals. In recent weeks, the attacks have been greater for Christians. Some of the witnesses in the Sahel region state that if the owners were Christians, the attackers did not consider it necessary to count their animals because they said they not only wanted to take their animals but to kill the owners. This has forced many Christians to flee their land. 147 people, including 8 pregnant women and 19 children under 5 years of age, have been forced to flee from 2 villages bordering Niger. One of the groups is made up of 17 people, 9 elderly, 1 woman, and 7 children. The terrible thing, says one of the refugees, is that when someone took us in, we were denounced as Christians, and that put whoever accommodated us in danger. We had to sleep far away from the villages.
The phrase that President Biden is a good Catholic has provoked the mockery of the Russian Orthodox, who ironize about the Catholicism of an avowed abortionist.
Strong words of Metropolitan Hilarion of Volokholamsk, chairman of the Moscow Patriarchate's Department for External Church Relations. In an interview on the Patriarchate's website, when asked about President Biden's support for abortion. Asked why the administration of President Biden, who is Catholic, insists on supporting abortion, Metropolitan Hilarion stated, "Every time President Biden is referred to as a Catholic, I wonder what his Catholicity is really like. The Catholic Church is against abortion, while President Biden supports it. Is he acting as a Catholic believer or as a president of the United States? A man cannot claim to be Catholic while breaking the fundamental norms of Christian morality and asking others to do the same. The Catholic Church, even in the United States, as well as the Orthodox Church and many Protestant organizations, defend conceived children, saying that abortion is murder and that every human being, including the unborn, has a fundamental right, the right to life," he added. Unfortunately, this is often forgotten by modern human rights activists. They fight for any kind of rights, for example, the right of a homosexual couple to adopt a child. But the fact that every unborn human being has the right to be born and live is forgotten. This fundamental human right is denied.
Stopping to pray in front of an abortion clinic will now be a punish in Spain, with up to 1 year in jail, according to the law approved by the socialist and communist government.
The social communist government has overcome the last hurdle to introduce a new type of law in the penal code with which to punish with prison sentences of between 3 months and 1 year those who peacefully gather in front of abortion clinics. The socialists speak of harassment confrontation. The government managed this Thursday to save its controversial bill to impose prison sentences on pro-life groups that obstruct the right to abortion in front of abortion clinics. This reform of the penal code, which was taken into consideration by the lower house last September, managed this Thursday to overcome the last stumbling block: 2 amendments to the totality presented by Partido Popular and Vox. The law will punish with prison sentences or community service those who harass or restrict the freedom of a woman who intends to exercise her right to voluntary termination of pregnancy, promoting, favoring, or participating in rallies in the vicinity of places authorized to terminate pregnancies, causing and undermining in the freedom or privacy of this one.
Our editorial this week is dedicated to commenting on, among other things, Cardinal Kasper's criticism regarding the German Synod.
Pope Francis will be, God willing, 85 years old next month and enjoys, everything seems to indicate it, good health. However, age, above all, makes the rumors of how long he will last the pontificate do not cease. Rumors sometimes encouraged by himself, as when he recently said that he would like to be succeeded by John the 24th, successor of John 23rd. Naturally, with a pope who has already appointed so many cardinals that make up a large majority within the college of cardinals, everything seems to indicate that Pope Francis's successor will indeed be along the lines of the current pontiff. However, this week a book by George Weigel, the main biographer of Saint John Paul II, was published in Italy with a delay because it has been almost a year since it was published in English. The book is entitled The Next Pope, and the fact that it has been published in Italian, well, has given much to talk about. In that book, Weigel ventures a hypothesis. I'm not saying that he makes a prophecy, he ventures a hypothesis, and he says that in spite of the ample majority of cardinals appointed by Pope Francis, the situation of the Church is so serious and with such a deep crisis that it is probable that the successor of the Pope will be someone not like St. John Paul II, but more conservative. He would call him John Paul III. And he is of the opinion that it is easier for Francis' successor to be a John Paul III than a John XXIV. Of course, this is Wigel's opinion. However, things have happened this week that seem to encourage this thesis. For example, Cardinal Kasper, German, author of an important Christology, a man very close to the current pontiff, to the point that Pope Francis spoke highly of him almost immediately upon his arrival to the pontificate. This week he has referred to the synod of his country, the German Synod, and he has said that it is a farce, that it is not a synod nor a synodal path, but that it is truly a path that leads to the ruin of the church, a farce. And he went further, saying that the bishops seem more and more like the leaders of a multinational company who can be put in or removed according to the whim of those in charge instead of being the successors of the apostles. Such a harsh criticism of the synodal path, a farce, he says, such a harsh criticism would have been accepted, logical, in the mouth of Cardinal Mueller, in the mouth of Cardinal Pale, in the mouth of Cardinal Sarah, but it is Kasper, the Pope's friend, one of his main advisors, who has said this. John the 24th, if he existed, if he were to become the next pontiff, we don't know which cardinal he would be, but if he were to be with this idea of convening a Third Vatican Council, etc., would he have the strength to bring this crazy German synod to heel? Another event this week. Bishop Sanchez Sorondo, who is Chancellor of the Pontifical Academy of Sciences and Social Sciences, a man who has been much criticized, a liberal person within the Vatican, a man who has been much criticized for some appointments he has made for members of that academy, some of them notorious pro-abortionists. This week, he said that the main problem we have is not the virus of COVID. The main problem we have, he said, is the silent apostasy, the abandonment of God in contemporary society. And as in the case of Kasper, this phrase could surely have been said by many cardinals and conservative bishops, but it's been said by Sanchez Sorondo, no less than him, a person very close to Pope Francis, a person who is, I repeat, of the liberal group within those who are part of the organization chart. Kasper Sanchez Sorondo giving clearly conservative statements. Not only that, the prestigious Austin Institute of the United States has made not a survey but a serious sociological study among Catholic priests in the United States. It is true that it is limited to the United States, but the data are very significant. It has come to the conclusion that 80% of the priests who are under 40 years old, that 80% are against the reforms of Pope Francis. And that on the other hand, 80% of the priests who are over 70 years old are in favor of these reforms. That is to say, the reforms of Pope Francis are widely rejected by young priests and only widely accepted by retired priests over 70. Naturally, between the 20 and 80, there is a gradient that decreases. 20 and 80, there is a gradient that decreases support for Pope Francis as the age of the priest increases, but from 40 and below, and who have been ordained for 10 to 15 years, among these priests, the vast majority rejects such reforms. This is quite meaningful. The Austin Institute report also says other things, many of them interesting, but there is one that seems especially important to me. Within that group of priests over 70, it turns out that 21% confess to being homosexual themselves and say that they consider that the exercise of homosexuality is not a sin in certain circumstances. This does not mean, far from it, that those who support the reforms of Pope Francis are homosexuals, far from it, but that among those who support it, there are 21% of those over 70 who think this. This is a fact, at least a fact offered by this sociological study house. On the other hand, among the young priests, among those who reject the reform of Pope Francis, among those who say they do not like it and who are 80%, there are only 5% who consider themselves homosexuals, and none of them consider that homosexual acts are justified in any case. How will the next Pope be like? The Holy Spirit knows. We do not know. Reason tells us that with a very large majority of cardinals appointed by the present pontiff, the successor will be in the line of the present pontiff, a John the 24th. That is what reason tells us. If Wigel is wrong, and so it would happen that a John Paul III would not come, but a John the 24th, what would possibly happen is that the Pope would be more and more distant from his priests, and also more and more distant from an important part of his faithful. But it is the Holy Spirit who knows. What we have to do is to pray. We must not forget one thing. We do what we must do. And men think, or we think that by moving in one direction or another, we will achieve this or another result. Reality often goes another way. The fact that this is being talked about, that these things are happening, indicates that there is fear in the Vatican, a certain fear, at least a certain fear that the very serious crisis that is shaking the Church will make the cardinal electors, even some who have been and are very close to Pope Francis, elect a candidate a little more conservative in order to be able to face this serious crisis. But I repeat, these are all human approaches of Wigel and of others. It is the Holy Spirit who knows. It is He who knows what will be the future, and what we have to do is to pray that it is always and in any case the will of God that will be fulfilled. See you next week, God willing.
If you wish to be up to date about what is happening in the Church, you can follow us in our news page, www.magnificat.tv. See you next week, God willing.